Very good afternoon to all the people who love gardening and nature in general. We are part of a team which works on bringing pollinators to urban landscape. So I and Chetana will take you on this small little journey. So I will be setting the context, whereas Chetana will be speaking about how everybody can get involved. I'm Subhadra among the two of us. The next slide. Yeah. So we all know urbanization is escalating, right? But the statistics here is a little daunting. By 2030, India's city-dwelling population is going to be really double to 590 million. It's a little scary. If you look at the world population level, we are all going to get urbanized. I still remember a statement by one of my friends that, when you go to Kerala, you're not going to find villages. It tells a lot. Like, we had 3 generations, or even we as child always visited our grandparents in villages, and we had this luck, or we were very lucky to connect with nature. So it's really to think about the next generation may not have that opportunity. It really is scary. So the disconnect from nature can affect mental health. A whole load of evidence saying that how people without any contact with nature can be really affected. Not only that, also the disconnect has many other consequences. I just sort of met a small child and asked where does she get her breakfast cereals from. She said from a factory. So she didn't even connect that it comes from a field. So she thought it comes from a factory pack. So that would really be a very pitiable situation. So how do we bring nature into an urban landscape? So let's now go and look at the green spaces in the city. If you look at it, earlier on, it was multi-tiered, a little haphazard, messy. And if you see our neighborhood parks, it's pretty much what you see on the right side. Absolutely manicured, and there's a certain formula to it, right? You have this lawns and what you call some flowering plants in the center. So there's a formula for it. So this is basically a colonial hangover. So what we did earlier was we had a very utilitarian and very useful home garden, and we moved to this kind of a very aesthetic and absolutely what I would call as green deserts in the urban landscape. But then I would like to talk about this man, Vishwanath Kadur, who's looked upon as the father of terrace gardening. So, and I like his little the statement of his. When I was a child, nearly every family in Bangalore had a garden behind their kitchen, and so did mine. What they call as kai tota. For all our food came from here. We only went for just rice and other rations like onions, which came from outside. Even if they went to the local santes, which used to happen in what you call the sandies, which used to happen on a Sunday or Friday, where people went and got the other rations, which they couldn't get from the garden. So it was, in fact, it was what we call as a lockery, where we grow food from within our neighborhood and ate very fresh vegetables, right? And didn't really impact the environment. But now, if you look at it, we are in the age of supermarkets. Our generation now is more into supermarket. That's even me. It's not. It's everybody around, right? And we even Swiggy our fruits and vegetables. It's the height. Also, we want our vegetables to look as if they're out of a factory. What you see on the right side is melons. This is Japanese who have sort of, have a glass casing and try to have melons grown like cubes. So this is basically to enable easy packaging. It's just not, supermarkets. We also Swiggy, we get lazy even to go walk up to the supermarket and choose our own fruits and vegetables and Swiggy everything now, Swiggy or Zomato, one of those. But what are the consequence of this current food consumption culture? We all know some of the things. We eat the dragon fruits. We eat apples throughout the year, breaking season, right? So that has a lot of consequences. For instance, carbon footprint, the flight. A lot of these vegetables and fruits move through air and also through the sea, and a lot of refrigeration is involved. We also know wax coating. When we pick up this very nice polish apples from the racks of supermarket, we all know it's wax. And also there's a big lag between the food and the fork. So there's a nutrient degeneration also. So these are the consequences of some of our consumption culture. It's easily said that switch or shift cannot be very easy. Having said that, I'll move. Can we bring edible gardening, move from this absolutely manicured and aesthetically pleasing gardens to more edible gardening? It's a challenge, but there is a possibility. At the city scale, say we have the spaces like the parks, public as well as the private properties, right? And we could also look at the apartment terraces as commons, right? It's a common area for all of us. So these are some of the areas, large scale areas, but at household levels, we have the home gardens, we have the balconies and other places. I think we can make a difference, at least in these spaces, if not at the cityscape. Yeah, but having said that, we have moved something from the very haphazard kind of home gardening to more, we are used to a very aesthetic kind of gardening around us. So I think we can do this transformation, combining both aesthetics as well as edible gardening. These are some of the examples. So I think there is a possibility. At least it can start at home, if not at the city scale. So I'm going to go and ask what are the components that go into the home garden? What components make home garden sustainable? If people can type the answers in the chat box, it will be good. Let me see the chat box. Oh, yeah. I just want to see yes, good. Yes, we'll wait for another few sunlight. Okay. So I'm going to say what we all think, yeah, water, of course. Right. So I think, yeah, seed saving. Oh, that's a great point. Diversity. Gray water, wow. Especially the kitchen waste. Time and passion, very important. Instead of chemical fertilizers, yes. Mulch. Okay. I think, well, if you look at it, yes, we all spoke about this. Someone said compost. We said, we should use the wastewater. I think we have examples, some very cool examples of wastewater hydroponics. This picture you see on the, sorry. It is from Bangalore. It's a wastewater hydroponics where they've grown a lot of vegetables. So of course, somebody said seed. Seed means also seed sovereignty, right? It also gives us the opportunity to detach from hybrids, which has its many woes. If you look at it, if you look at a few generations back, what did our grandparents do? In the garden, they will identify a big fruit and sort of set it aside for seed. And then they would sort of collect the seed and keep it for the next season. I think we have lost this practice and started, we go straight again to the supermarket and pick up those covers, which are hybrids. So now that there is a dependence, right? There we are moving away from sustainable practice to external dependence. And those may not, you cannot even, they may not even set seeds which are viable. So we really have to move towards what you call as the native land races. There are many advantages to it. There are disease resistance, less pests, and mostly they need pollinators. If you have to move from hybrid seeds, where they might have sort of selected for avoiding pollinators, which may not require, when you move to native land races, we really need the pollinators. So we need help from the pollinators. So everybody said that. Nobody even thought about pollinators, right? So you give its nutrients, you give its water, but nobody realizes that they do need the plants, particularly your veggies and your fruits need pollinators. Of course, your rice, wheat, and other cereals are wind pollinated and they don't require pollinators, but all your fruits and veggies require pollinators. Now, what can we do without pollinators? This is an example. On the left side, you see, this is a Chinese apple orchard. What happens is they kept expanding their farms at an industrial scale and they didn't match the pollinators. So what happened was there was hardly any fruit set. So they started hand pollination. Imagine the amount of labor that goes into it. That's again, another story is the vanilla introduction. We didn't have the native pollinators we had to resort to hand pollination. So pollination becomes very, very critical. So some might argue that not all require pollinators. Some could set fruits without any pollinators. It might be true in part, however, in a greater proportion, there is an increased amount of fruit when you have pollinators visited. They might set fruit without pollinators, but there is an increase in yield. Who doesn't want increase their yield? So we all want to increase our yield, right? Not only that, the quality also matters. We saw some nice manicured fruits in the supermarket shelves, but what happens is some of your fruits can look like this, particularly your cucumbers. What actually happens here? Sometimes the flowers don't receive enough pollen to fertilize all the ovules it has. So what happens? It doesn't. So it needs a certain threshold level to have all the ovules pollinated. So we need pollen moved by pollinators. Otherwise, we could have all this not so nice looking fruits which we may not pick up from the shelves. So I'll just go to another story. Another story we all must have heard about the colony collapse disorder in the West, right? USA as well as in Europe, where they started moving this Apis cerana, but the European bees, the Italian bees, where they had this huge colony set in orchards and had the pollination. So it is almost like having monoculture, like as we have monoculture, it's a monoculture of pollinators. So what happened? One disease came and wiped, and there was a colossal loss. So we need diversity. It's not like based on that. This is our own study by one of my A3 colleague. Let me tell you this. This is a story about the vegetable hub in Anekal. We all know most of our vegetables comes from Anekal here, particularly what you call the Sime Badaneka, which is a very popular sambar vegetable in all our darshinis, right? So the lot of trees you see there is nothing but it represents Banargata. And what you see down is the fields abutting a little far away. Some fields are close and some fields are almost getting closer to the city. And on the right, you see two scenarios. On the left, you see a scenario when there was normal rainfall, and you see another year when it's absolutely drought. What happens in the normal year? The normal year, what happens? The plants, this particular thing, what do you call the chayote squash, which is dependent on pollinators, have the pollinators visit from within its surrounding, like your trigona and your serrana, Apis cerana, and as well as your dorsata. But you see, there is few. With the rockweed, the biggest is few in the normal year. But when you sort of move to the drought year, the trigonas are absolutely absent. They got desiccated perhaps, and they were not active. So what happens? If it was the situation like Europe or US, you would have been in deep trouble. But what actually happened was, when these guys were not there in the system, bees from the Banargata, which is the Apis dorsata or the rock bees, which had a long home range, came and serviced the crop here, and they had almost equal amount of yield. So what does it say? It says we need the diversity to tide us during times which is not very conducive. And with climate change, we expect a lot of rainfall extremes, rainfall deficit. So I think we need this diversity in our system. So having this, so we have here, I kind of emphasize how we need diversity. When something happens to one species, you need something else to compensate. So moving to the city, what is happening in the city? The same rock bee, which was a hero in the rural city, in the rural area, what you might call as the peri-urban area, had a completely different image, right? Bee attack affects the entire neighborhood, and there's a lot of, they're not so popular, but there is also another set of voice say, why can't we be tolerant to bees? Having said that, we also should realize we might have young children, and bee sting may not be good. So we should think what else can be done. We need the bees. We want the home gardens. We want the greenery in cities. So what do we do? So when we move, so this is again from our own experience. Who are the others in the Bengaluru whom we can use or whom we can invite into our gardens? So if you look at this infographic, which is based on a study, you see a gradient from urban transition to rural. As you see, the rural area, you have fewer species and the transition at the mid-level, and actually you have great variety in urban. This is not one would expect, right? We always thought urbanization could affect, I could have an impact on pollinators. But yeah, this is not very surprising result. This is because the cities have a variety. We have all kinds of flowers, fruits. So there is this sort of brought in a lot of diversity of bees. So this is something to take home, right? So we are good in the city. So how do we woo these bees into our garden? And also evidence from studies, we can nurture the diversity of the pollinators can be nurtured. Not only this, we look deep into the floral resources. It's said that with increase in floral diversity and resources, we could increase the diversity of bees. So coming to the next part of it, this is based on a survey during the COVID. In the about 5 years since, there has been a big jump in edible gardening in the city, which is a good sign. And as you see, many of the Bengaluru gardeners find the mojo during the pandemic. We really saw a surge. So while everybody, if you look at the chat box, everybody spoke about how we should mulch, how we should use our kitchen waste. We never thought about the pollinators, right? So we really could increase our yield by when we sort of think or bring in pollinators into our gardens, be it terrace, balcony, or our own, or the grounded gardens, as you might want to call it. Yes, sorry. So, yes, sorry. I think I jumped. Oh, sorry, I think I'm really confused. Yeah. So in our study, we wanted to sort of see how the bees respond to one species. This is the Avrekalu, which is very, it's also called the Bengaluru beans, which is very popular. And we studied the visit right from the city center to up to the not city center, somewhere, not because city center is Pete, where there's absolutely no gardens, but somewhere where there are gardens in the North Bangalore, up to extreme peri-urban area. We found this particular species attracted such diverse species of bees. So so we are good. We have a good diversity in the city. We have potential. So how do we woo them into the gardens is something we would like to discuss. Yeah, Chetana, you might want to take over.
Hello.
Yeah. So should I move to the next slide?
Yes, please.
Okay. Here you are.
Yeah. So let's talk a little about who these solitary bees are and why we are so worried about solitary bees in particular. So solitary, as the name suggests, these bees don't live in large groups like honeybees do. They live largely by themselves, or in some cases, some nesting happens close together. So largely solitary, that's why the name. They also have very different nesting habits compared to the typical honeybee. These bees generally need wood. They also need bamboo or hollowed out reeds. So what happens is, like honeybees manage to kind of adapt to the city environment, and they build their hives on buildings and large trees and all of that. These kind of bees find it hard to find nesting places. So these three images here just give you an idea of how it's quite interesting that this is in the middle of the city. It's a very, very busy space. And these bees have managed to colonize it. So this is actually in my garden, and I live in the heart of the city. And we see that this bamboo pole that was put up was colonized by almost 5 to 7 bees in one season. Next. Thanks. So what is interesting is that not only are these bees different in their nesting and clearly their looks as well, they're also extremely efficient pollinators. And they can pollinate, could you just go back? Yeah, thanks. They can pollinate, just go back.
Yeah,
previous one. Yeah. So fruits and vegetables, which require a special kind of pollination, which is called buzz pollination, which requires the bee to kind of hold on to the flower and vibrate its flight muscles so as to release the pollen that's held in anthers. Well, this special kind of pollination is done only by these solitary bees. They're quite invaluable in the sense that certain fruits like tomatoes, brinjal, and several other fruits of exotic fruits, flowers that we have in the garden. These all of these need solitary bees to pollinate them. The next. So this brings us to our project, the Bee Garden project. And the motivation behind it was the fact that we see that there aren't too many nesting spaces for solitary bees in the city, and that solitary bees are great in terms of enhancing edible urban agriculture in the city. So this project is funded by the Bengaluru Sustainability Forum, and A3 is part of this project, and it's partnering with Agastya Malai Community Conservation Center, which is A3's field station. Next. So what we want to accomplish through the project is set up bee hotels all over the city. And this would be a pilot effort because studies of this scale are almost never done, especially in urban settings. So we will collect data. All the people who have bee hotels in their houses will be able to log data on a regular basis. And then we will be able to have a database, which would be very useful in getting to know generally about solitary bee ecology in the city, and also if you want to use the database to plan spaces that are pollinator friendly. Of course, we also want to mobilize citizen action and motivate people to take up pollinator friendly measures and take interest in pollinators, and of course be aware of what they are and what they do. Next. Yeah. So I speak of bee hotel. So what really is a bee hotel? A bee hotel, very simply put, is a structure where bees can nest. And this can be a very simple one, like the one in the middle, with just a piece of PVC pipe with some hollowed out reeds inside. And it can be like huge installations like the one on the left, with different kinds of materials, different kinds of cavities. It could also be anything in between. Next. Yeah, so these are the bee hotels designed by our team for the Bee Garden project. These are two versions. The one on the left is more suited for slightly sheltered areas. And the one on the right is more hardy, so you can keep it right in the sun outside and nothing should happen to it. So let me quickly tell you how this works. So as you can see visually, there are 3 compartments in the bee hotel. Let's move on to the next one. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So the top compartment has pre-made cavities. So these cavities would be occupied by bees, which like to use pre-existing cavities, and they don't need to make their own. So if you move to the right, side, we'll show you the corresponding bee. Yeah, the one on the rightmost. Yes. The next one. Yeah, so bees like this, the Seratina wingami is a solitary bee that likes to use these hollow duct reeds and is also been known to occupy pre-made cavities. Then the second compartment in the bee hotel are these poles of bamboo. As you can see, there are no cavities that we've already made here. And these kind of bamboo poles are preferred by large carpenter bees. I'm sure everybody's seen these really big ones, yeah, black and yellow, or if you go on top, completely black. So these are, that's the topical carpenter bee. It's one of the largest bees, definitely in the Indian context as well. So these bees like to make their own nesting spaces. So they would like to hollow out the bamboo pole and nest there. The third compartment in the bee hotel is the one at the bottom. Yeah, so that's should be filled by soil. This is as of now unfilled, but before you install it, this needs to be filled with soil. And this will provide space for bees that like to burrow in soil. Actually, a lot of bees do that. I mean, we don't realize that. Most bees are actually not honeybees, and lots of bees burrow in soil. So this compartment caters to that. And if you move to the right bottom, yeah, the blue banded bee, which again some of you might have observed in your gardens, kind of generally seen around late morning, midday. They hover around in a very typical busy fashion. So these kind of bees, they like to burrow in the soil. This and several other species as well. So this is how the bee hotel has been.
Chetana, there is a question there. Could you please repeat the name of the bee in the first compartment?
Yeah, it's called Seratina. That's Ceratina.
Should I go back?
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Which one? This one, right?
The one on the right, yeah. So that's called the small carpenter bee. It's very small, but it is a carpenter bee. And it's kind of bluish green, sort of iridescent blue-green in color. You can, of course, write to us with any questions. We'll share the email ID at the end of the talk.
Shall I move forward? Yeah.
Yeah, please. Yeah. We also have an app that we've developed to go with the Bee Hotel. It's called the Bee Hotel app. And this app allows all the users who install bee hotels in the house to log data on a regular basis. And here you can see the view, like how it looks. You can submit observations. You have an account that is set up specific to your bee hotel that records the features in the surroundings. And of course, we also have a small bee IT guide. And you'll also come to know about a project and a lab in general. And these, the two panels on the right are especially for understanding the effect of the landscape. Yeah, so we want to know, does it make a difference if you have plants around? Does it make a difference if you have a water body close by? Or does it not make as much of a difference? So all these questions would help us understand that. We can go to the next slide. Yes, so you've seen what the Bee Garden project is about. We're happy to say that we're going to be open for registration very soon, in a matter of a week or two. And the app is also almost ready, so we can share that as well. I think we should be able to share this in a couple of days. So ultimately, taking part in this project is like taking part in a citizen science activity, like you would do bird activities and butterfly watches. So this is for bees. And supporting bee diversity through edible gardening, because these bees are so supportive for edible gardening, and you can increase your harvest if these bees are invited into your garden. So I'd just like to wrap up saying that I really hope that you guys will be part of this project and stay with us throughout the project and help generate extremely useful data on solitary bee ecology in the city. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm just calling out from the textbook. Is it only for Bengaluru area?
Yes. So as of now, yes, this is only for Bangalore. This is because this is a project that's funded specifically for this area. And we are interested in, of course, moving out and looking at other cities and even spaces that aren't 100% urban, say, but this part of the project would be restricted to Bangalore, yes. Can we get bee hotels in Mumbai? Hopefully soon, not right now, perhaps, but we'll keep you posted. And if you give us your email ID, we can contact you if we are expanding this.
Is this app only for Bangalore, or we can use it in other cities in India? Yeah.
Technically, you can use it anywhere. But right now, we are interested in looking at Bangalore because we just want, this is a pilot study and we want to restrict it to Bangalore. We've also done a lot of other bee studies in and around Bangalore. So we sort of have supporting information to go with it. And somebody asked, is it Nomia species?
Yeah.
Water?
Yeah.
Could you just scroll up? Yeah, okay, great. No, it's not Nomia westwoodi. I think it's Amagilla. So that's the blue-banded bee on the bottom right, and the bottom left, I think, is Xylocopa pubescens, the Carpenter bee. About bee IDs, is it possible to get information? So yes, this will be available on the app. And if you want more information, please write to us. We'll share the lab email ID. We'd be very happy to provide you with the information. Can we build one? Can you help us with its design, please? Yes. So we were initially thinking of having people build their own bee hotels and having a tutorial or something that would help people. I think the reason we've decided to go with this like a uniform model across all participants is so that it's easy to compare data. And we will not have to take into account differences in the bee hotel itself. So yeah, you could build one, and sure, we could help you with it. But if you would want to be part of this project, as of now, we would recommend that you go with this uniform design. Somebody says, I mentioned citizen science, citizen participation. That would need a lot of patience and motivation. Would be good to get local political leader to see that his or her ward is the best. Yeah.
I think that's a great suggestion. Yeah, we are hoping to have some sort of a webinar where we want to include some people from the policy side also, because individual household, yes, it adds to the effort, but we also need larger spaces which could support, right? See, our gardens can support them in terms of floral resource for certain season, right? But then we also need connectivity and other stuff. I mean, it's much more complex. One is what is happening within your garden that might be suitable for bees, but also how it is connected to the surroundings, what is the composition and all that. So that is why this perfect one type of a piece of a bee hotel, where we have this, it's almost like a controlled experiment where we provide only so much and see the colonization and the occupancy, so that rather than having people build their own models. Yeah, you're right. I think we should involve more people in the policy level and municipality and other kind of engagements, which could help scale up. It can't happen only at home garden scale, but this is just a start. Yeah. Do you need to take care of this piece? I don't think so. Yeah. You have anything to say, Chetana?
No. So the bee hotel is designed such that it has some shelter, and if you place it in the right sort of space, you don't have to actively maintain the bee hotel, at least not for a long time.
So it needs a little sunny place and a little away from complete glare all the time. Also, I think when we'll have a manual accompanying the hotel that will sort of give details on that. Yeah, I think we have to place. Do you have to take care about water and wind? Yeah, I mean, we always place some bird bath and other things. Some bees do drink water, so we could kind of place some water within the garden. Yeah, I don't think so, not very specific plants, but we might come, based on a database, we might give you a list of what could be interesting for the bees. We will try to get mostly the edible bees so that people's interests, is people also get interest because they will get something in return, right? So, yeah. The shelter, cost of the shelter we are working out. We got the whole thing done in one of our field station and got it transported here. We're really working out. Yeah, of course, we can share the design. That's not an issue. As long as it perfectly matches to what we have. Materials, also sourcing the same kind of materials and having them placed in the same way is very critical. But if there are people who are willing to do that, we would totally share all the information. Yeah. But basically, but if you want to get into this and get into this monitoring and contribute to the citizen science effort, we might have to double check the design so that there's some uniformity and there's no sampling bias or anything of that sort. Yeah. Next, yeah.
Just reading out 2 questions, which says, how do you invite bees in the new shelter? So just the fact that that material is available, and if you keep it in a sunny and reasonably visible sort of spot, then the bees should be able to find it. I mean, there's no other way. Of course, having a garden around it, having flowers would attract more bees, yes. And what is the frequency at which we need to log data? So we don't have a set pattern like that, but we would need you to log anything that you would see as interesting. So if you see a bee occupied, if you see bee activity around, or even if you don't see bee activity, even that is valuable data. So just generally, whenever you notice anything interesting, or when you have the time to take a look at it and update us, that should work.
Yeah, about artificially increasing the population. But anyway, I think I had a colleague tell me that they're boring their swings and other rafts. So there is a dearth. We might, but it's beneficial. I would say I won't be worried too much. Of course, there is the issue of parasitoids. Bee hotels also attract wasps. We have to keep an eye, and some management has to be done. So I think a manual will also suggest how do we sort of tackle. We cannot completely keep the pests of the carpenter bees or solitary bees away. So we would give some suggestions for management, I guess. Yeah, we'll definitely share our contacts, also give the design. No, they have a site fidelity and memory, and they keep coming to the same bee. Someone was saying, what if the next generation bees? If it is unoccupied, of course, some of them don't hesitate to use the nest which has been established by the previous generation. Or to cope with the rain aspect. Yeah. Yeah, I think I think the design is the waterfalls. I think it has some kind of protection, and we also tested it in a smaller scale within our office. So yes, as I told you, parasites might be a problem, but yeah, I think we might, manual will say some management. We cannot completely rule out anything. So pests are there even in our gardens, right? We have to learn to cope with that. Yeah. Yeah, wasps, which is the predator of the carpenter bees. But some of these wasps are also pollinators. So, when there's a trade-off, yeah. Yeah, we could, if you could, we could help choose the right spot. If you share the details of your garden, definitely yes. Yeah, we'll share the contacts. Yeah. Should we do it now or here right away, or? Yeah, I think last we can put that in if there's no other questions. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, hopefully, I think that's a nice response to the earlier questions. If parasites can control them, yes, and keep the population. What if the garden have termites? Well, it is wood. We can't help it. That's also part of the garden. You have termites in your garden. It also reflects the health, right? You're not using chemicals, too much of chemicals. I think it's a matter of balance and frequent checking. We definitely don't want to use any chemicals to prevent it from any termites or anything. We have not used any paint. We have kept it bare because they're also sensitive to smell. The bees are also sensitive to smell, so we don't want to deter them from coming. Would you help in sensitizing the housing societies? Of course, we could do workshops. We are planning to do a workshop in Kaban Park or any one of those gardens in a more open space and sharing more information when we have all the bee hotels arrive. So people can just pick it up from us in a central part. They don't have to come to A3, which is far away and little away from the city center. Does these bees sting? That's why we are saying, I started by saying that they're benign. I wouldn't say they completely. If cornered, yes, but compared to the honeybees, I think it's evolved a strategy to protect its younger ones. And they also have as you know, the honeybees die after they're leaving the sting bag, right? So these do not have that kind of a thing. It seldom stings, very, very rare. Yeah. Stone slab might help. Yeah, I think that's a good solution. We are having some sort of what do you call a metal pedestal on which this can sit. We have a metal sort of a pedestal which can be set down the ground, and this could be set over that. So it's a little away from the termites, but not completely foolproof. Stone slab is good. We have two models, one which will sit on the metal pedestal, and the other one where it can hang in our terrace gardens, or where there's absolutely no garden space, even the balconies and other stuff, they could be hung. Do the bees app subsequently, after people report about parasites and wasps, and after our database grows a bit, we might have that also as a part of the app, so that we get more information on them. Yeah, what's the difference between bee hotels and insects? Bee hotels are specifically designed to attract, at least, we cannot stop the other insects from colonizing, but largely it remains attractive for bees. For bees. Largely the structure, but we cannot prevent other insects from colonizing also. It depends. For instance, I think Chetana put this. Tell me, Chetana, I think you should talk about the bamboo. Yeah.
So, of course, Manasvi, that would depend on this bee species. And how long does it take approximately for the bees to occupy the hotel? It takes a couple of days for them to make a cavity if they're making it by themselves. And typically, most of the occupation happens in summer or sunny times, or when it's not raining, so maybe after the rains or in summer. And typically, these large carpenter bees, they take around almost 2 months for the egg to develop, go through the larvae pupa stage and emerge as an adult. They also have multiple cycles happening within 1 year. So that sort of depends on the resources available. So they also reuse their nests. So I hope that answers your question.
Something about hibernating. I don't know if we have hibernating bees in India, at least. But the bumblebees in the Himalayas do hibernate, but they're also solitary, but we don't have them down south. Yeah. Would you help us if we propose a plan of maintaining one? Of course, any kind of inputs is welcome. We set a bee hotel in the garden of a school. Of course, I think the next stage is we're going to reach out to schools to have one. And also because it's a lot more, safer, absolutely safe, and we don't have the stinging issues, we would encourage more schools to have it, and also have the students monitor and have more engagement, and tie it up with the school gardens also. I remember when I was in school, I think gardening was one period of our class. So I think we could bring that culture back. How many colonies can stay in a setup per species? Really, these are information we like to generate. I don't think we have answers to this. I think the citizen science effort will help us understand all this better. Yeah. How about engaging lake development groups? Of course, I think that's a great idea. This is, it's going to be in phases. As you said, the school is next, and the lake development could be the next target group. Thanks for suggesting that. Any other, it adds to the biodiversity, I would say. Any other than pollinators, and it's aesthetically very, I think, fantastic. It gives a lot of, you can see them. It's really wonderful to watch them, see them vibrate and buzz and scatter the pollen. If you have a very good camera, you can also, capture the pollen spray. One of my friend was saying one of his student has captured that. I'm yet to see that. I think it is very engaging to see them in action. They also maintain territories. If you have a big enough garden, they would sort of sit during their breeding season, sit and guard a patch. And it's very nice to see them guard it, come and hit its what do you call it? It's close. I mean, another bee coming to prevent it and guard the territory. And they don't do random foraging. They have their economics in their head. They're supposed to indulge in more optimal foraging. Yeah. What is a foraging area? It depends on the species. For instance, species is one thing because it directly relates to the energetics and the energy levels requirements. The largest bee might require more energy, as we know. And if it gets the resources in a high blooming season, it might get the required resources within its range, right? In an off season, it might have to really forage far away. We do not have great information on this. That I think that would be an excellent study. We could do a radio tagging and study them. That could be the next level, I guess. What are there any subspecies also? Not so far. This taxonomy of this bees itself is a big impediment. We have very few people working on solitary bees in India. It's a big challenge. We are also trying to, and we don't even have the full spectrum of the bee species found in India yet. It's an emerging field. I think it's an open field. I think I think the citizen science effort will perhaps let us know if there's any new species which we haven't encountered. On an average, how many apart from the cavities we have shown, it depends on the bamboo, right? How many? I would say 3 might occupy one of those long bamboos linearly. So 6. Yeah, and we also have a picture of some of the bees which burrow. We saw about 4 in that space. These are all early. I mean, this is all from pilots. We'll have better idea when data emerge. Of course, we'll share because it's everybody's data. It's not our data. Any reading material would suggest to know more about, and we are trying to get a popular booklet, some kind of a nature guide for bees, but we need more information. When you look around, there isn't much about this bees. So I think as we sort of have more information, we'll try and bring out something. We have no idea how to breed these bees. We're missing. Yeah. Yeah, we will guide them to that also, the eye naturalists. Yeah, that's a good suggestion. We'll definitely can give the suggestion. The manual that will go along will give an indicative list of what plants could be made, could make the garden attractive for bees. more messages. Yeah. Well, at the moment, no. Yeah, I think one of our doctoral students in ATRI is going to be working on Apis dorsata in Bilgiri Rangan Hills, where she's going to look at the migratory patterns and usage right from forest to the urban scape. She's going to be looking at their behavior, etc., along the gradient. I think that will be very useful information after development. But that's on Apis dorsata. My earlier doctoral students and my own PhD was on rock bees. We will share such specific information when you'll write about what plants attract what bees. We'll definitely, I think this is what we showed in the presentation is very indicative. We could definitely come up with an exhaustive list. Yeah, when they have, when they lay eggs and this thing, they require a lot of pollen and honey, which they store in the back of the cavity on which they lay eggs. So that time, I think the foraging range and activity is really huge. Yes, part of the app would also say have a provision for the people who want to participate to sort of, give the information, upload the information. So we'll have a better and more area-specific information, right? We might have right now what we have is a general information of what the Carpenter bees or any solitary bees are visiting from, literature which comes from a large, scattered kind of geographically scattered. So, but then if through this, we might have information specific to Bangalore. So what are the local species here, and be it exotics or whatever indigenous, we would have an idea. Could you also read the question? It would be helpful if you don't.
I think she means that if we can read out the question before answering, then everybody could.
I'm so sorry. Okay, I'm so sorry. Okay, fine. From now on, I'm so sorry. Yes, they do. Nectar. We don't say honey, right? They collect nectar. Only after the honeybee processes, we call it honey. Yeah. They collect nectar from wide range of plants. Their energy comes from nectar. Protein source is the pollen, largely. So we have about, please share details on how one can join the project. So email ID, I think, yes. Team push at atri, -push at atri.org. Yeah. It's a team of us, so even if one person is not available, other person will be able to respond. Yeah. Like honeybees, they are monogamous to a flower species at a specific duration. Same is applied to this species as well. Well, I think more and more we are realizing that many pollinators feed on wide spectrum of of species so that, if they're able to survive. I think that would be the case in case of, particularly in the urban habitat, right? You're not going to get very, if you go to the village setup, you might get, a monoculture kind of a by harvesting where cultivation is prevalent. But in cityscapes, you would get a mix, right? So I think for them to survive, it's better to be a generalist rather than be a specialist. The question was like honeybees, they are monogamous to a flower species at a specific duration. Same is applied to these bees as well. So I'm saying even honeybees, it all depends. It's the geographical context. Sometimes even during a specific duration, it could be, a mixed species. And in the other time, it could be certain species. It depends on the flowering phenology of that particular area. So nothing is, it's very variable and depends on the geography, phenology, and the climatic conditions of the area. So. Yeah, if they go, you're right. Versus drumstick. If they, for instance, there is some amount of interspecific pollen transfer can happen. You can't really help it. So it's a very different thing in what you call in a natural area. The distribution is in certain fashion. But in particularly in the urban areas, you have a very mixed kind of, the species are really mixed. So, some amount of interspecific pollen transfer are likely to occur, and that is a loss also. I think we have to accept that. Urban setup is very different. I think that's my guess. You kind of, yeah. Of course, this is a citizen science data, and we don't own it. It's everybody's data, and on the time when analysis will be done periodically, and whatever emerges will be shared.
So let's just read the question now.
Okay, sorry again. Yeah.
Will the final data be shared? Yes.
Yeah.
Be shared.
Well, yeah, that was sorry. I keep forgetting that. Yeah. Yeah, the other question is, like honeybees, if they keep hopping to different species, what will happen? It could be detrimental to the plants. Was approximately what Amit was asking. But I'm saying in city setup, it's bound to happen interspecific pollen transfer. And it could sort of lead to not setting fruits, the plants not setting the fruits, but I think it's bound to happen. Yeah. No, it's all, specific time. Yeah. You mean to say partition? I mean, he was asking also about specific time. They go to some species, and in the say slot A 6 to 7, some species 7 to 7. It is, if you look at it, most of the plants open during the early part of the morning. This bound to be overlap. Yeah, unless it is really something nocturnal and as well as diurnal species of plants. Of course, I think they may not be immediate, but they can get soon. Yeah, they can affect them. Depends on the level of the chemicals involved, right? Each one has a different threshold.
So the question was, does applying,
yeah, you read the questions, I'll answer, I guess.
Yeah.
The other way around.
Yeah. So Serafina asks, does fogging for mosquitoes kill bees also?
Yeah. So I'm saying it depends. Mosquitoes might be more sensitive to that chemical that they might have chosen. So each species have a threshold. Some bees might be, the smaller bees might be more sensitive and can get knocked off. Perhaps the larger carpenter bees might get swooned and revive later. We really don't know. Yeah.
So she says, is there a particular time of day that would be better to fog for mosquitoes to reduce impact on bees?
Generally, the fogging for mosquitoes is done in the evening. At least I've seen most of the fogging happening in the evening. So there's, in that sense, it might not affect the bees on flight, but generally, if you sort of spray, it might deter the bees from coming to that particular plant because of the strong smells also, yeah.
Amit says that he has noticed honeybees.
Honeybees, yeah.
So,
Honeybees, yes, they are smaller and could be more sensitive. As I said, the smaller solitary bees might be having the same, I mean, might get affected by fogging for mosquitoes, but I'm not sure about the larger bees. Yeah, to light pollution, yeah. Some of the solitary bees are known to navigate even in evening times and during moonlight, particularly the carpenter bees. Light pollution, I've only seen honeybees occasionally come to light. I've never seen, I mean, I think over the years, I've never seen the carpenter bees or any solitary bees come to the, get drawn to light. If that is what, I mean, the question is any issues related to light pollution. So I'm telling honeybees, I've seen them get drawn to the light, but not solitary bees so much, yeah. So I think we have reached 5 o'clock. So should we? Yeah. Stingless bees might come. Yeah, I've seen them in some shop. Yeah. Take shelter in the hotel. Not really.
So Anand asks, do we expect the trigona bees to take shelter in the hotel?
If they like the soil and like to dig and make a thing or find some crevice, I don't know. If it's very difficult to say because they like to make some holes along the, something, a little soft material and have something hard against it or something like that. So they might colonize, we don't know. Trigonas may colonize. Not sure. I think we'll know over time after we. Which bees make holes on the ground cover? Chetana, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, sure. So actually, a lot of bees. So if bees don't build hives and they don't use, dead wood, then they are very likely to be nesting in on ground. So that's a whole bunch of bee species, and definitely the blue-banded bee, several others as well. Also, some of the halicted bees, some of the smaller bees. Yeah.
I think if there's no further burning questions, by ground cover, I meant leaves of plants on the ground.
I don't know about this. Definitely not common. I haven't heard of bees nesting on leaf litter. I think she meant.
Yeah.
Okay, so Amit says make one more compartment so that I think Serrana indica can also capture it the way they do in the birdhouse.
I think the idea is to sort of keep it exclusive for solitary bees. Because we also want to say it can be kept in the balconies of apartments, which has a little garden. And so we really don't want the honeybees come in because there's always this conflict of being stung, right? Well, I'm not against it, but I think we also have to be sensitive to people who have concerns. We might have a small child in the house and all that. So we really don't want the honeybees, which can sting, to colonize. Of course, trigonas also make honey. Trigona bees also make honey. But yeah.
Stingless. Though.
Yeah, stingless. They are stingless. Yeah. Well, we don't have an answer to that. Pramila, we really wish we knew. We haven't seen anything. So, yeah. I think if there's no more burning questions, thank you. It was very nice. I was a little nervous. It's not going to be interactive and it's going to be one way. And I'm also, I mean, this is the first time I'm doing this in this kind of a mode, used to more offline. So sorry if I failed to read the question and answer in the first half of the session. But definitely, I'm sure we'll share all information, come up with a manual along with the hotel before we sort of launch it. We hope to see you all offline in a common place like Kaban Park or something where we can interact better. Great to hear that many people thought it's an exciting project. Very nice questions also. Thank you so much. Yeah, so right now, somebody's asking, yeah, if there's a hope such a project in Mumbai, let's get it started in Bangalore and then see how it goes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Many of you guys have really liked the session. Chetana, you want to add something from our team? Thanks from our entire team, which you want to name them also and then sign off.
Sure. So our team in A3 is the two of us and Jagdish and Sunil, who you can switch on your cameras if you guys are there. We also have two people collaborating with us from ACCC. That's Anthony and Tamil Arakan. So I think they're traveling, so they couldn't join us. So it's basically the 6 of us on this project. I would like to say that we'll get in touch with all of you once the registrations are open so that you know what to do and how to be part of this. Thanks.
Thank you so much.